I have something to confess. I have a deep and dividing love for reality dating shows. I know it's fake, it's scripted, but it's a guilty pleasure of mine. In the last couple months, I had a series of interviews with 4 prominent International Public Debate Association competitors and coaches. You probably already heard the interviews that I had with Lindsay, Elaine, Daniel, and Ethan. And as I listened back to them, I thought about one of my favorite reality shows. It's on Netflix called Dating Around. You have back-to-back blind dates. They get the exact same question, and then you compare the answers. So I think, instead of dating around, let's do a supercut of our conversations, and we're going to call it Athen Talks Debating Around. Enjoy. Why did you join the IPDA?
I joined IPDA because I'd competed in debate in high school. And so it was just a big part of my social circles, my education so far. And so having the opportunity to continue that through my education at Union University was just a shot I couldn't miss.
Why did I join the IPDA is I was getting ready to leave Jeff State Community College before completing my associate in arts degree. One of my last days there, I saw a flyer talking about joining the Jeff State debate team and they would pay for your tuition. So I said, well, let me go watch this exhibition debate. And I just immediately fell in love with the fun and enjoyment of coming up with arguments, hearing someone else completely disagree with you and trying to convince someone that you're the right person. It was wholly exciting, and I was lucky enough to be offered a scholarship on that team.
I actually have a really funny story about that. A nice guy named Trey Gibson went to talk to me while I was in high school, and he was like, hey, you're doing mock trial, which is what I did in high school. We were state champions before that. And he's like, I think you'd kind of like this. And I was already decided I was going to go to LSUS. At the time, I thought I was going to do law school. And he was like, hey, just come to a tournament, watch around, have some fun. I ended up being too late to the tournament, but the guy seemed really interesting. And he made me sign, and I got a fancy hat. And I went to my first tournament, and that was that. I was all in from there. I've been a part of the organization ever since.
So when I was graduating high school and I was looking for a college, the one thing that I absolutely needed no matter where I went was debates. And the idea of getting to be part of a foundational team the first year on the circuit was something that I really, really was excited about. The opportunity to build a legacy and build a program from the ground up has always really excited me.
Why did you stay in the IPDA?
Well, in the 2 years that I was on the team at Jeff State, I just continued to fall more and more in love with this activity. Well, I figured I can get a degree anywhere, but I wanted to continue to do IPDA because the schools that I knew about weren't really doing any form of debate. The only thing that was available was like mock trial or model UN. And I was really, really interested in this niche debate league. So I decided to keep going for it and what I loved.
A lot of the same reasons that I ended up staying in it in high school. I absolutely loved the people, both in my team at Union University, but also on the circuit. Just getting to interact with other teams and coaches was really cool. IPDA is incredibly diverse. And so it was great opportunities to build community, and they just became my people. I looked forward to seeing people at tournaments. And then I continued to learn as well, just through the research that we did on different topics. So lots of factors kept me in it, but I just really had fun.
So it's a place I found really to be home, not only in the sense of this is where I enjoy being, this is where I am professionally, but everyone from virtually all of the best men in my wedding were debaters. My wife now debates with me. My twin sister debates in the IPDA. My first coach, Trey Gibson, was like a father to me. I call my second coach, AJ Edwards, debate dad, because that's who he is to me, right? So I stayed because I love the people. The organization is great. It's really competitive. And out of all the organizations I've seen, it's most enjoyable for me. So I'm a bit biased on that, but that's one of the reasons why I stayed.
The people, 100% the people. There was a time where I thought I was going to do something else. When I graduated college, I had moved to DC. I was working on the Hill. And in my mind, it was time to use the skills that I had spent all that time developing. And I got real depressed real fast. And a lot of that was the lack of community around me. Even though I was living with a former IPDA debater that I knew from a different school, I really, really missed the energy that lives here, and the support and connectivity. Even this weekend, I am going to a wedding for somebody I met through IPDA that was my fiercest opponent for an entire year. But we're able to support each other and build that community, which is not something I found anywhere else. Home for me is the circuit more than it's ever been anywhere else.
What was your biggest misconception about the league before you joined?
I definitely didn't expect it to be as diverse as it was. I thought as a pro IPDA debater, I would be competing against other grad school students. But to get to compete against all kinds of different backgrounds and educated individuals was really cool. Competing against coaches and lawyers was just an interesting opportunity that I didn't expect coming into it.
I thought it would be a more formulaic and rigid structure of competition. I assumed it would be analogous to the Mathletes competition in Mean Girls, where everyone has very strict rules and you're kind of nerdy and you want to say this particular thing right, or this way that your coach taught you 5 months ago, it would be specific to this round. And what I found was it was a lot more fluid than that. In that regard, it was so much more fun than I really thought it was going to be.
What are some of the biggest reasons that people don't join the IPDA?
Lack of exposure. It's growing now, and it's been growing ever since its inception, but it hasn't reached mainstream awareness in the academic circles. Most schools and students who have engaged in debate, they're aware of like Lincoln Douglas and parliamentary debate, mock UNs, as I've said before, but very few have actually heard of IPDA.
Well, just because of the fear of public speaking, I think that definitely plays a role in it. It's intimidating to get up and talk in front of people. I would say the second big reason would be like just misconceptions about what it is, commitment, how to put together a team. And so just a lack of education around this growing league might be another reason.
A lot of misconceptions around debate. People think it's going to be a really insanely time-consuming activity, which, don't get me wrong, like missing an entire weekend of your life at home and the ability to get homework done is a time commitment. If you're watching the news and you're tuned in, that's just not the reality. But a lot of folks thought that they just wouldn't be able to bear the time commitment of it. And same thing with hostility, like we were talking about earlier, is folks, I deal with this with my students still, they think that debate is arguing. They think it's fighting. Absolutely not what we do in this arena, even though I know that if you turn on like hardwood debate, sometimes that is what you'll see.
If you could change the IPDA league, how would you change it?
I would employ a rule that is wholly unfeasible in reality. What makes this league so special is its premise that lay judging will preserve the integrity of our league's unique persuasive style, the man off the street philosophy. My solution would be to minimize requirement or set a minimum requirement for tournaments to have lay judges. I would say like 50% of the judging pool would have to be people that were literally off the street. You could take people from the host school that are in class like we normally do, or find your local guy at the gas station and have him come in and judge around. The idea would be that I really want more people that are genuinely unknowledgeable about this type of debate or debate in general at all. That way we would be forced as debaters to not say things like, oh, my opponent didn't have this type of weighing mechanism for this round, therefore they can't win the round on this and that rule. I think it would be a lot more rational argumentation and more convincing and persuasive speaking.
I would say just continuing to grow schools and different teams closer together and continue to see coaches working together to make the league better. We got to be a part of that as our team did scrimmages with other schools and helped build some of that camaraderie. But I think just the more that schools are bonded and working together, the more this league is going to continue to improve.
If I could change it, in a way, what I almost want is to go back to a time where I never was. I always hear stories about when the IPDA started, we had less divisions, of course. We didn't have all the divisions we had today. And there was a time when the founders of the organization and all the big name coaches that were, that were and still are my mentors would just go in for a round of pro and have fun and, do completely silly things. And I feel like I won pro 2 years in a row, and I don't see myself as an old hand. So one of the ways that I would change the IPDA is I want some of the old hands to come back and throw their hat in the ring. I think it's helpful. If we're going to stay as advocates, we need to understand the competition. But two, it's helpful to let all the new people, the new faces, the novi that come in year after year, see the people that founded the organization in more than just the roles as head of the governing board or chairs or executive committees. But I think those face-to-face in-round reactions would really help maintain the great collegiate atmosphere that we have in the IPDA. So that's one of the changes I would love to see.
Tell me a story that defines what it means to be a professional IPDA debater.
Okay. We get 30 minutes of prep time before a round. A coach that was competing in pro a lot a few years ago, he stays out of the competitions now. He stayed there for what felt like the entire prep time. So what I mean is he was a coach on another team and he came over to my team to help us prep. And I saw him there for a long time, what felt like the entire prep time. And I asked if he had a bye round this time, a round where you don't compete because there's an odd number of competitors. And he said, no, I'm about to go to round. And I said, when did you prep your case for this round that you have to do? And he says, hey, I'm a coach. My round is not as important as your round or your student's round. Sometimes I may only get 5 minutes to prep my case. And then I need to make sure that the students are ready for their rounds. He went undefeated that tournament. To me, a professional debater is one who can do all the things a great debater can do at a very high level, but he can do it as a backdrop to his primary goal of assisting and educating the next generation of debaters.
There's so many stories from my time in the league. But there's this other female IPDA pro debater who is just incredible at everything that she did. Very nice and personable to get to know, both inside and outside of rounds. When you faced her inside of rounds, it was intimidating. And so I remember the first time I competed against her, just being so intimidated just by her reputation and being encouraged even by her before the round that we were just going to have fun, feeling like in some ways she was almost on my team rooting for me to do well in it. And I was surprised by that as a newer IPDA debater, that it wasn't just about the competition. And I didn't really have a reason to be afraid. And I went in and it was one of my favorite rounds, incredibly fun, very down to earth. And then we walked out of that round, just became closer friends because of it. Like the result didn't even matter once we'd walked out. And we continued to cheer each other on throughout the 3 years that I competed in the league. She was one of my biggest supporters and fans. I was one of hers. And that was just a cool thing that I think really does define what the league is about and just puts this range of experiences that I've had into one single picture.
To me, it's kind of a mentality. So I competed in every division of the IPDA. Novice, JV, varsity. I've been in top 10 in all of them. So I've been competitive. But one of the things I loved about pro was when you walked up to pro and you walked up to strike. When you walked up, it wasn't like enemies glaring at each other, trying to see who was going to be the one who made it out. It was, okay, we're going to have some fun. And we'd just go and debate something for the fun of it. And absolutely, we'd go in there, we'd try our best, but it was just really the relaxed nature. The fact that, hey, we've all been here a little while, or even if we haven't, we'd like to see you here. The dynamic of the pro division is completely different. And to me, it was the most enjoyable. Out of all the divisions I competed in, I enjoyed my time in pro the most because the people were really inviting, and we were mostly there just to have fun.
What unique approach or value do you bring to the IPDA? Why do judges vote for you?
I was once told that I'm like a sponge when it comes to debate. Any idea or concept that I get shown about debate, I commit it to a new core memory. My unique approach is being a true student of debate and always trying to play around with the different concepts I've learned to see what makes for the best rounds.
Yeah, well, my background's in Lincoln Douglas debate, which is one of those styles that's more person-centered, where you really try to focus on communicating well with the judge what they would like to hear to help convince them. And so my style was really just trying to be authentic with the judge, making consistent eye contact, stepping away from the podium, making it feel like there was not a debate case standing between me and my judge, but rather we were on board and just trying to move toward the same goals together.
I think it's a combination of factors. So one of the things I did that really changed the way that I debated as an individual was I went over and I participated in debates over in Ireland and England. And in watching that style, I learned a few things about the narrative types of debating. I remember I was in Wales and we tried to bring up some statistics and the guy literally went something along the lines of, we don't care about those here. That was the entirety of his response. They just wanted the great rhetorical style of debating, especially that last wit speech. These are the main ideas. Here are the 3 questions we need to answer in this round. So what I took from that after doing JV and after experiencing that was, okay, I love the technical. I definitely know all my debatees. I know the stock issues. I read the textbooks. But what I took back was, okay, don't forget the story. And then after I became an instructor, a person actually teaching even just the basic speech course, I also learned kind of the same lesson over again. I was like, okay, hey, let's not put this debate first. Let's put this speech first. Okay, so what are the elements that we need in a good speech? why aren't we doing those inside of debate, right? We have an intro and we have a hook. Where are the hooks, right? Well, not just the resolution. We need a concluding sentence. I know we don't just wait talking to the timer runs out. All these basic things that are truly, in most instances, very basic concepts from speech. I just was really insistent about, okay, yeah, we need a narrative. We need to make sure we summarize everything, and we need this to be narrative and story driven. I'm certainly not the only person to advocate for such. In my mind, why I was so successful is I was a pretty good marriage of the technical side and the narrative side. And putting those two things together, I think, is the reason why I was successful as I was.
And I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about good faith argumentation. I fundamentally will not make an argument in a round that I, A, do not believe in, and B, do not think is fair. It's really, really important to me that the rounds are set up equitably, even if that puts me at an extreme disadvantage. And I'm not saying people do it all the time, but there is the urge to kind of frame things in a way that favors you or run an argument because it's the right argument to do. When I run the right argument, I lose. When I run an argument that I believe in and I can understand and even if the argument is invented by me, kind of off the wall, I will do significantly better. So really just that believing in myself, again, that ethos of being able to extend goodwill to my audience and to my opponent rather than just trying to force them into a corner that I wouldn't want to stand in.
What is your proudest competitive achievement or coaching accomplishment in the IPDA?
Well, there were 2 students last year who employed in their style as debaters many things that I had taught them when they first came into our team. They weren't particularly confident in their abilities when they first started. In fact, they weren't even sure that debating was for them. But they fell in love with the sport the way that I fell in love with it. At one tournament last year, they both won their respective divisions. I had never seen it happen where 2 of my fellow students or fellow peers both saw their success reach the pinnacle of winning a tournament on the exact same day. And it was 2 students who were unsure but kept working. That was an amazing thing to be a part of.
I think my proudest moment was when I was competing at a tournament with my team on board, and I just got to see a lot of teamwork throughout this tournament, but I had to step away from the prep time for almost the entirety of the prep because of a situation that came up. And I asked my team, will you help me brainstorm ideas? And in the very little bit of time that I had remaining in prep, my team surrounded me and just helped me brainstorm and listen to my ideas on a case I was going to run. And I walked in feeling just as prepared as if I'd had the entire amount of prep time. And I just remember after that round feeling so proud of the team that I was a part of. Yeah, it just made me so proud to be a debater at Union University.
At the tournament, I was the runner-up by 1 point in 1 battle. And that was a big achievement. That's great. That achievement by itself is great for me. But the reason why it's my proudest one is because of what happened that year. That was my last year of grad school. I was in the midst of writing my thesis about debate. So I got to actually present at nationals, my thesis. I also had just had my son, Oliver, was born that same year. So in the midst of all that craziness of finishing a thesis and having Oliver and all the stress, so much stress of that year, to be able to come out of that year successful and doing all of this was a great feeling. It was a great feeling, not only because of the accomplishment, but also because I felt really supported. Everybody in the circuit was so helpful.
What is your proudest accomplishment that you learned outside of IPDA because of your IPDA experience?
My proudest accomplishment that I earned outside of IPDA because of that experience was when I graduated from Jeff State Community College. I won the Allen Award. It's the award that school gives for the most outstanding graduating student. It was the only thing our college had that was akin to, say, a valedictorian. The award is based on a mix of grades and contributions to the school, and IPDA is the sole reason I received that award. And without the IPDA, I would not be the me today that is someone I could be so proud of.
Yeah, debates taught me a lot of skills that I find myself using on a daily basis in the job that I have now, but even before this. But the coolest thing right now is that in my job, I get to help write polygraph questions for individuals who are on probation, just to be able to determine how to best help them in treatment. And so my experience in debate helped me think through what's the end goal here? What are the answers we want to get? And how am I going to ask those questions without people feeling attacked or accused? And that's something that I think is absolutely wild and so cool that I get to do.
I think my proudest accomplishment isn't even like an individual thing. It's the realization that I could be a teacher. is when I started in college, I didn't think being a professor was a real job. Ironic, I know, right? I'm a professor now. What I mean when I say that is I didn't think it was something that I could do realistically. I didn't think it was a real outcome, a realistic outcome. And over the years, people like Trey and AJ and Sheila all influenced me and pushed me towards this direction of, hey, you love this, you can do this, you can care for the students. So being able to transition from just doing it for, okay, this is going to be great for my career to I love this as an individual to, hey, this is something that I can do because I love. And that's my proudest accomplishment is through the process of debating.
I think it's pretty cool that when I graduated, I got to get my dream job like right away. I graduated 6 months early a little bit. I went to DC for an internship, and that was how I spent my last semester of college. And right from that, I was in the exact job that I'd wanted to have. And a lot of that is because of the way I'm able to present myself and articulate myself that my opponents in the real world were not able to have behind them. So IPDA not only has a resume in terms of, oh, you have success, but when you go into the interview and you're able to actually talk to somebody in live speed, you're able to be really dynamic and connective. And again, that really comes down to IPDA focusing on real life rhetorical skills instead of just paper speed argumentation.
Any questions for me, the host?
A million questions, and let's start with just one. When you get there at 8 a.m. to start a tournament, you are ready. You are pumped, excited, full of energy, and eager to talk to everyone within eyesight. At the end of the night, right when it's about time to call draw for the last round, you have the exact same energy that you had at 8 a.m. in the morning. How do you maintain an apparent constant state of motivation throughout a grueling tournament? How are you always ready?
As people in last year's Pro Division are now very aware of, I did not come from the same IPDA locations as most of the competitors. I live in Wisconsin, so I either have to pay a lot of money to fly down to a tournament in the South, or I have to spend a lot of time driving down to a tournament in the South. I apply the same philosophy of taking advantage of vacation time or hangout time or a nice restaurant experience to IPDA. If I'm driving an hour to a restaurant and an hour back from a restaurant, I should be optimizing at least 2 hours of my time at that restaurant to make that drive worth it. With IPDA, it's going to take me longer to get there and get back if this is a driving experience than it will take time for me to debate at the tournament itself. So to make up for that differential, I feel like I need to create more value for myself by treating every round like it is a theatrical showcase. If I don't bring my A game, I'm not going to invite the mirror neurons of my judges because my enthusiasm creates an emotional enthusiasm in them. Humans are pro-social creatures before anything else. And if I don't recognize that and come in with lackluster vibes, I cannot ignite great vibes in the judges, so I will have no expectation of success.